The desert sun beat down mercilessly on the Marine Corps' training facility in 29 Palms, California. On the 1,000-yard range, 3 of the Corps' finest sniper candidates were struggling with a problem that shouldn't have existed. Each of them had scored expert marksman ratings. Each had completed advanced reconnaissance training. Yet for 3 consecutive days, none of them could consistently hit a target that should have been routine. Staff Sergeant Mike Torres lowered his rifle in frustration, sweat stinging his eyes. Beside him, his spotter called out another miss, the 4th in a row. The conditions weren't ideal, with desert thermals creating heat mirages that danced across the landscape, but these Marines were trained to compensate for such challenges. Something was wrong, and nobody could figure out what. Colonel Richards observed from the command post, his concern growing. These weren't ordinary candidates. They were being prepared for critical deployments, situations where a single shot could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Time was running short, and confidence was eroding with every missed target. An old pickup truck rattled up to the base entrance that afternoon, its paint faded by decades of sun exposure. The driver was a man in his late 70s, thin as a rail, with hands that trembled slightly as he presented his identification to the gate guard. His name was Walter Brennan, and he had an appointment to visit the base museum, a privilege extended to veterans who had served with distinction. Walter had been a Marine sniper in Vietnam, though he rarely spoke of those years. After the war, he had returned to a quiet life, working as a mechanic in a small town 2 hours away. The Corps had been his youth, his identity, his purpose. Now it was just memories that sometimes woke him at night, images of jungles and missions that most people had long forgotten. As he drove past the ranges, something made him stop. Perhaps it was the familiar crack of rifle fire, or maybe just instinct. He parked his truck and walked toward the 1,000-yard range, drawn by sounds that had once been as natural to him as breathing. The rangemaster, a gunnery sergeant named Phillips, noticed the old man approaching and moved to redirect him. This was a restricted training area, but Walter's eyes were fixed on the targets, on the shooters, on the way the heat shimmered between rifle and target. "Your boys are fighting the mirage," he said quietly, his voice carrying the rasp of age. "They're compensating for what they see instead of understanding what's really happening," Gunnery Sergeant Phillips bristled slightly. These were elite Marines, trained by the best instructors in the world. But something about the old man's certainty made him pause. "And you know this house, sir?" he asked, respect in his tone despite his skepticism. Walter smiled faintly. "3rd Marine Division, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. I spent 13 months looking through scopes in conditions that would make this look easy." He pulled out a faded identification card from his wallet, proving his service. Philip studied it, then looked back at the struggling shooters. Against every regulation in the book, he made a decision. "Show me," he said. Word spread quickly. Within minutes, Colonel Richards himself was walking down to the range. Staff Sergeant Torres and his fellow candidates watched with a mixture of curiosity and wounded pride as this elderly civilian approached the firing line. Walter moved slowly, his back stiff, but when he settled behind the rifle, something changed. The trembling in his hands disappeared. His breathing steadied. 50 years fell away. "The mirage isn't your enemy," Walter said, his voice calm and instructional. "It's your informant. You don't compensate for it. You read it like a book. Watch the patterns, see where the heat columns are strongest, understand that the bullet travels through layers of air at different temperatures." He adjusted his position slightly, made minor changes to the scope settings that seemed insignificant but weren't, then he fired. The spotters confirmed an immediate hit. He fired again, another hit. 5 shots, 5 perfect impacts on a target that had frustrated expert marksmen for 3 days. The Marines watching fell silent, not with embarrassment, but with the recognition that they were witnessing something profound. This wasn't just marksmanship. This was wisdom earned through experiences none of them could imagine. Walter stood up slowly, his knees protesting, and handed the rifle back to Torres. "In Vietnam, we didn't have computer simulations or advanced meteorological data. We had our eyes, our instincts, and the knowledge passed down from snipers who came before us. The technology has changed, but the fundamentals haven't, The bullet doesn't know about your equipment. It only knows physics and the air it travels through. For the next hour, Walter worked with each candidate, not just teaching technique but sharing understanding. He explained how to read the Earth's subtle cues, how to feel the rhythm of the environment, how to become part of the equation rather than fighting against it. The Marines absorbed every word, realizing they were receiving a masterclass from someone who had learned these lessons when mistakes meant lives lost. By sunset, all three candidates were consistently hitting their targets. Colonel Richards approached Walter as the old man prepared to leave, offering thanks that seemed inadequate for what had transpired. Walter just shook his head. "Those boys reminded me why I wore this uniform," he said quietly. "That's thanks enough." As his old truck disappeared into the desert twilight, the Marines understood something fundamental. The Corps wasn't just about the men and women serving today. It was a continuum, a chain of warriors stretching back through generations, each link forged by sacrifice and knowledge passed from hand to hand. Sometimes the best teacher isn't found in a manual or a classroom. Sometimes wisdom walks through the gate on trembling legs, carrying truths that cannot be replaced by any technology, reminding everyone that honor and skill are timeless.